When you get to conceptualization, getting something to fill the gap. You're not just doing something for doing it sake. That's the part that I found so much challenging. Alright. So that's the part I find so much challenging. Be able to carve out what you want to do so that you are meeting a particular need. After you are done with that, every other thing, I think it's fine. Then for me, I think qualitative is much more easier for me than even the quantitative. So I find that very, very interesting than the quantitative.
So please, our new, is it guest or participants? Please briefly introduce yourself, and let's also know how you have found research endeavor in terms of these questions.
Okay, Okoro Lens. I'm Okoro Lens by name.
Please, I can't hear you.
Lens Okoro by name.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
From?
Okay, coming from Jos University Teaching Hospital.
Jos?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so
you are welcome.
With respect to research, for me is an interesting aspect and an area that.
What's the problem with this guy? Hello? Okay, continue.
So it's an interesting aspect and an area that I've always wanted to venture in, even though one is still at the early stage of research career. So
are you saying you've not ventured into it yet?
No, I've done some publications, but still learning.
So from University of Jos?
Yes.
What background?
Medical.
Medical?
Yes.
But your area of research?
Okay, public health.
Okay. Yes. And public health is also broad, so yes. You've not told us your area of public research, but you are welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Let's also hear from Dr. Fabi.
Representative, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Your name again?
My name is Matthew.
Matthew.
All right.
Okay.
With regard to your question, generally, research is what we will do almost every day. So, though it's exciting, and there are areas where we find it challenging. Of course, if you ask me, I might not drop this mic till the end of the day.
You might not what?
I may not drop the mic when I start explaining things that will pass through doing research, the field work aspect, and all those things. Actually, it's interesting if you like to explore. But on the other side, the challenges are things I wouldn't want to look into, because if I place attention on that, it's really discouraging. Yes. Years back, when we were doing one of our research, among one of the difficulties, one period I was meant to lose some of my enumerators on the field to accidents, and last year I was in Kebbi State. Unknowingly, we walked into an EA where we encountered this, what did they call them? These Fulani herdsmen.
When you were in the field?
In Kebbi, yes. So these, to me, some of the challenges we find. One would go to the field, and it's not really encouraging.
Were you kidnapped?
Don't let me go to that story, sir. I had to beg for my life.
Wow.
It was not a funny experience.
Wow.
But, you know, as for we statisticians, we don't have choice. We'll go there when we are sent. We go and do all these things. But, you know, that's just one of the painful aspects of research in Nigeria. But I know gradually we'll surmount it. Thank you so much.
And let's also take Dr. Amina experience.
Yes, thank you. For me, it's an exciting field because of the new discoveries, and I like exploring, and I want to have more knowledge in terms of
Okay. Continue.
yes, I want to explore into areas, especially the unknown, to help me in my daily activity and also help me in making decisions and help me in implementation. So, but one aspect of research that I like so much is the data management, analysis, interpretation, and then using that evidence to solve problem. I think that was a key one. Then the difficulty, apart from the challenges, and then the time, especially if you are doing something new, it's something that can discourage one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You remember I mentioned earlier that you are doing something new. You will possibly get to the point of abandoning it because it seems not to be making headway. So if you ask me my own experience, I will also share. But maybe we can quickly hear from Professor Patus's experience doing research over the years.
Don't worry. I'll share my experience. Don't worry. I'll share my experience.
So, doing research is exciting, as you have all mentioned, as you have all indicated, particularly because you are also making contribution to the body of knowledge. I know how exciting will it be to say that you've established these new findings. And every breakthrough that you have seen, I repeat, every breakthrough in terms of technological breakthrough, medical breakthrough, scientific breakthrough, they have all come through the process of rigorous research. And so, setting your heart to do research, something that you are setting yourself on the path of an exciting adventure. So, in terms of my experience, as you have mentioned, exciting but also challenging. Yesterday we were at TIFE doing pre-testing our tool, our questionnaires, and getting back from the field. Immediately I went into the bed. I was not prepared to sleep. I slept off. So that's the kind of thing. In other words, you get really exhausted and tired. But if you set your eyes on the goal, and what is the ultimate goal? That you are making some contributions to knowledge that can bring about breakthrough, that can bring about reduction in mortality, maybe maternal mortality, reduction in childhood mortality, bringing about, particularly, how can we have COVID vaccine if not because of rigorous of clinical trial? So those are interesting parts of research. But those who try to compare research and teaching earlier, you cannot be actually a very good teacher if you are not a good researcher. Because what will you be teaching? You'll be sharing old stuff. And that's why you see some lecturers sharing materials of 1970s. Okay? And we're talking about information age where everything is changing so rapidly that if care is not taking what you are learning, you will get into a 4-year program. What you learned in 100 level, before you get to final year and graduating, those stuff, that material you learn in 100 level might have changed significantly. So now not to talk of the lecturer who is sharing 1970 materials. Okay? So being actively involved in research will also enable you to give the best to your students. So your research activity, your research involvement in research enterprise gives you the leverage to be a better teacher as well. But you have raised very important points, some of you, in terms of focusing a particular aspect of it. Some of you mentioned you are at home with qualitative. Some of you say you are at home with quantitative. Some of you mentioned about the problem with conceptualization. And that is actually what this session seeks to address, conceptualizing research idea. As students often find it very difficult. That's why when I supervise students, I don't like to give topic to my students. Because, for example, what you have come to do here is not just to be a fellow, but to take you through a learning process. Beginning with conceptualizing your own topic, your own research idea for your manuscript. Because if I give you, if I give you a topic, you've already missed a particular learning outcome. Okay? It can be through a rigorous process or back and forth, but that is the process through which we learn. Or is learning so linear? It's not a linear process, so to speak. It's so divergent, it's so collinear. You go back and forth. So in essence, when you have that, so conceptualizing is always very difficult because of poor conceptualization. Many researchers, many students often reinvent the wheel, doing the same thing that others have done. And their argument is that it's been done in Ghana. It's not been done in Nigeria. So what gives you idea or the audacity that you're going to get new findings in Ghana? Is Nigerian context significantly different from Ghanaian context? If yes, maybe you'll be adding to the body of knowledge. If not, then you are only reinventing the wheel. So conceptualization is a challenging aspect which we will be dealing with thereafter. And then the process of conceptualization in the research endeavor. And then we will share more. But I want to welcome Professor Adesegun Fatusi for his presentation.
Can you just introductions? All right, good afternoon.
Go and fix for me. Okay.
When it comes to adolescents, and I told her I'm afraid for her and this program that she's a very busy person, but it's so good that she can find the time to be with us today. All right, so my job, I think there are two things I need to talk about. The first has to do with the concept around youth development. And I'll tell you why this becomes important to us. When we advertise this program, and we say we are going to do, we have a fellowship that will support people in youth development, several people ask different questions. I'm in economics. Can I apply? Does it align with what you are doing? Oh, I am a sociologist. Can I? And so one of the things we like to do is also to give people a broader understanding about this field that we work in. If I talk about adolescent health, I'm sure people can quickly define things for me. But I found that when I talk about youth, people's understanding sometimes is a bit different. And so we'll spend some time talking about youth development and framing that to help you particularly be able to set the course if you are out there still trying to conceptualize or think about what to do. All right, 3 things I'm going to do. Number 1, talk about something extremely easy and hopefully. When you say youth development, who are the youths? Or what do you mean by youth? When you talk about youth, then development, what are we exactly talking about? And finally, how does this land with their national conceptualization? How does Nigeria view the whole dimension of youth development? So let's start with the question, who are youth? Who wants to start for me? I have how many hours? 1 hour, right? I have 2 lectures. So who wants to start for me? Have you guys had lunch? Okay. Do you need water to supply some glucose? All right, who wants to start? WHO.
Individuals between 18 and 35 years old.
Okay. All right. According to her, Tolani, right? Tomiwa. I've called Tolani like 3 times. Tomiwa says, according to Nigerian definition, it's 18 to 35. Which of the Nigerian definitions?
Federal Ministry of Youth.
Federal Ministry of Youth. Good answer. So Tomiwa say, according to Federal Ministry of Youth, it is 18 to 35. I'm almost sure I may now tell you, I'm not sure that's what we will say if you are in the health field. But who wants to share other ideas about who you are? You are not wrong, by the way.
Yes, and I know they are different. We have young people, 10 to 25, we have 18 to 30.
All right. Let's try something else. One agreed issue is that there is nothing like a definition. Every definition is contextual, and every definition is within the framing of the actors. That does not mean there are no globally accepted, but there are no universal. All right. So, and now this is to show you the kind of diversity you have. If you come from the field of health, we always talk about the fact that adolescents are 10 to 19, youth go from 15 to 24, and young people go from age of 10 to 24. That's what you find with WHO, for example. That's what you find with WHO, and many of the UN agencies. But look at what Commonwealth says. Commonwealth says 15 to 29. If you go to African Youth Charter, like Tomiwa said, no, I didn't get it wrong. It's Tomiwa. Like Tomiwa said, it's 15 to 35. In fact, our last policy but one says youth are 15 to 35 based on the African Charter, but not our current youth policy, by the way. I will get to that. So there are no universal definition, but that does not mean there are no, like I said, framing globally. So one time you talk about youth, if you are doing your research, for example, and you want to publish, one of the very important things to do is to define who exactly are you talking about. Because if you say we did a study among youth in Lefe, my understanding and your understanding might be totally different in terms of chronological age. So it's always important that we specify intentionally who we are talking about. I always tell people that every time we talk in the field of health, or even in broader fields, and we talk about adolescents or youth defined by age, what we are simply doing is providing a statistical frame that can enable us to compare one country to the other. It's just for statistical convenience. But let me also quickly add that there is a correlation between the biological development and this framing. Because you know, for example, puberty happens for most people about 30, 40, 15. And they enter a new phase of life. And we also know that if you talk traditionally, that youth is a stage of entering adulthood, personal adolescent entering adulthood. That by the time people are 24, many people are already almost finishing school. Many people are thinking of marriage. And so they are beginning to change that phase. So yes, statistical convenience, but it doesn't mean it does not mean there's no ground for it. Am I making sense? Yes, so the statistical convenience is that it's something to enable us to compare. But the grounding for it is that you know that it's linked in some ways to biological development and social context of getting to adulthood in many places in life. So let's talk about Nigerian. The current Nigerian definition is 15 to 29 in the Nigerian youth policy. I can tell you stories about this. I led the development of the youth policy. Just like I lead adolescent. You know. Now, how did you come to this? And why did you come to this? I can tell you, this was a lot of negotiation, but also a lot of data. When they said 15 to 35, we were asking ourselves, at 35 really, how many people are still in transitional stage? We look at the data, it doesn't follow. But you know, people also say that a lot of people who are up to 35 are still struggling to find a job, still struggling to settle down. So we didn't cut at 24 because we understand that, look, in the economic climate we are, people are struggling for a longer period. Even marriage has been delayed because people go to school. Most of my young people are not married now. When you talk marriage to some boy, 27, marriage. Then my wife go to get the money to feed the woman, as if marriage means feeding the woman. People say marriage means responsibility. Yeah, but what responsibility? So one of the things I've been doing, by the way, I've been encouraging my mentees who are men to get into marriage very early. And I tell them, if I have my life again, I will marry earlier than I did. And that said, I finished medical school in 1987, did house job in 1988, did school in 1989. In 1991, I was married. But if I have my way, I will even marry earlier than that. As soon as I leave medical school, I'm going to get married. Do you know that in my life, the entirety of my life, I've never been best man to anybody? Because I married earlier than almost all my friends. Maybe apart from one. But I still felt now I'm married too late. Even though then, at the point in time, I have to beg to postpone the day because I didn't know where I was going to get money to do the marriage, you know. But on the social ground, I think that is good. Is young people that say they are afraid to marry, I tell them no, there's nothing to fear. Because the woman who is coming has been eating. She's not been starving. Right? She's not been starving. So it's not like liability is coming on your head. No. And I theorize, maybe somebody need to do a research on this, that, and talk about my example. I don't know why I got into this story now. I'll finish this story I gave up. From my example, I said, we were both in Ife at the point in time. We need to all, each of us has a house we are living in. We are paying rent. Each of us was cooking. If we had lived in one house together, the cost of that house is cheaper than the cost of two houses we are living in. If you had been cooking in one pot, the cost is less than. So I don't understand why people then say it is a responsibility.
The food is externally funded.
What is on time for them? No.
You're still in school and you're not married.
No. I mean, I will marry when I leave school. Maybe like house job. I just not have a child for 3-4 years. That's the only thing. I'm working. At the time she was living in Ife, I was living in Chagamu. Every weekend somebody was traveling. All that transport money, we could have conserved it. Not to talk of the risk that we are not thinking about as young people. So, you know what I tell people? I know I can. But come back to this. The truth is that the social context is also changing. And marriage is being delayed for some very good reasons sometimes. People are trying to finish school, they're trying to get their job, they're trying to get into real life. So it's understandable that if we keep it too narrow, we are going to run into trouble. If you keep it too wide, we are also going to be overstretching it. So this 29 was like a compromise that we also was informed by data. I can tell you when we finished, it was rejected by Federal Executive Council, it was rejected by the National Youth Councils. So if you read the policy, you find that the policy has a lot of words, it's very wordy, explain, because we are trying to justify, so when people read it, they will understand why we are saying 29. But I personally feel comfortable about defining youth in Nigeria as 15 to 29. But you are free to define it like what you want in your study. But be sure to let us know the age. All right. And when we take a look, one of the things that strikes you is that when you look at what happens in terms of the gender dimension, that as you move from the earlier age of 15 to 29, I know this one has been structured the way you will structure it in WHO or UN agencies. To say 15 to 19, talking about late adolescents, talking about 20 to 24, which is what they talk about young adults, and then 25 to 29. And as you come down, you find that the proportion of male-female shift more towards who? Towards the female as you increase this. And that has social implication. I won't say more than that. Let's go to the next one. This is distribution. You tell me.
Is it not the same cohort of...
No, it can't be the same cohort. Okay. It can't be the same cohort. You know what the cohort is? Where is the paper? You know what the cohort is? The 15, there's a different cohort. And there's an earlier cohort. And there's an earlier cohort. What accounts for it? Maybe I don't know. Maybe I know. Maybe I can just guess. I'm not sure.
Some will think that the lower, like, you know, the 25 to 29 should be more.
Why?
Because if you look at fertility rates in the past, perhaps people died during adolescence, and maybe some of them didn't make it to young adults.
But if you expect that, let's go back. If you expect that females are dying, you will expect that this will shift more to male. Maybe this is a good thing to think about. Sorry? Maybe the males are dying. Maybe. There can't be a perfect explanation here. What if people become more aware about fertility methods and they want to have more men because there is male preference? But older generation didn't know a lot about the biology and how it could influence either you have a male or female. But younger generation gets to know and they prefer female, they prefer male. You find the picture like this, but it's not a perfect explanation. The only other way to do this is to take this cohort and then see as they move up. Does something happen to male or female? If you are in a war front or in a country where there is war, this picture will be totally understandable because young people will go to war and they will die. But this is what we have in Nigeria. For whatever reason, might be worth thinking about. And this is what we have for the states. Of course, if you come to a place like Kwara, Yobe, Nasarawa, they constitute only very small proportion, only about 1% of young people in Nigeria or youth in Nigeria, compared to a place like Lagos and Kano that constitute Lagos, Kano, Kaduna, Lagos, Kano, Kaduna rivers. And you know this pattern is also the pattern of election. When you are seeing the results coming in, until you see Lagos, Kaduna, don't conclude who is winning the election. When they are in, the election is done. Because just Lagos alone will capture Kwara, Yobe, Nasarawa, Ebonyi, Bayelsa. But they told us that FCT must win in FCT to become president. Why FCT is 1.6%? All right. So let's talk about youth development. There are several ways to think about this. And there are 3 ways I'd like to propose to you to think about this. 1, we can think about youth from a developmental perspective. We can think about it as a principle, and we can talk about it as practice. All of them are important, all of them are correct, but there are different dimensions. Okay? So, this is about youth development. Can somebody read for me? Please read for me, Tanua. Sorry, this system has distorted my slide, but please go on.
It's a process that prepares a young person to meet the challenges of adolescence and adulthood and achieve his or her full potential. Youth development is promoted through activities.
Let's stop. So, essentially, this is talking about what you see as a biological and related process. And you see, and that's why I have this picture, that's just about people maturing through one stage of life and moving to another. And it's a natural process that happens in every society and is biologically orchestrated. But there's also something around youth development principle. While the youth development dimension or youth as a development process is universal, principles are also universal, but they are also context framed. Please read for me, Nike.
Emphasizing active support for the growing capacity of young people by individuals, organizations, and institutions.
All right. This is about philosophy. Philosophy is about a reasoning, a mindset. That look, when I do this, I need to think about, there are a group of people who are in transition who need to be remembered and put in the frame of what I'm doing. So it's a mindset or a philosophical approach to youth development. So you just do things, but you think about, oh, I was talking to a friend of mine in the last 10 minutes, Professor Jadola, and we were talking about admission in Nigerian universities into medicine. And they have this piece of something. Unilever is not that bad. Unilever is now 500 Last year it was only 50 spaces. Now they are there's three I'm telling you. Those days when I was posed, if you are doing Cambridge exam, or you are doing debate, and you make Now we tell you that if you get A, you can put out. If you get A, you go to our court. But A, you are assurance. When Jadola became pope, I left post 10 years ago. He became pope after many of him was telling me. At that point in time, the number of A has grown to become more than 10. So we used to add direct entries like 10%. We don't take 10. So it increased to 16. We need to accommodate the growing number. This year, about 55 people came with AAA. 55 came with AAA. And because if there was a strike last for years, they admitted 60% last year. So they said that both are we are thinking about if you have a philosophical approach to youth development. So the question we are telling ourselves is, so what do you expect a child who had AA or a child that made first class that want to come back? I cannot do it. Are we thinking about the mental health consequences? Are we thinking about suicidal ideation? So we think policies, but we are not thinking it with a youth framing to say, what will happen to these young people? What can we do to, do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's a mindset about they're doing policy, but we must be conscious that there's a youth group that we need to intentionally bring that dimension into our policy process. So youth development can be a mindset, a principle, that in everything we do, we remember that before we take this decision, how will this impact young people? What are the implications for their today? How does it impact their tomorrow? So it's a principle. But the third dimension is about the practice. Where do you stop?
The way the practices in programs, organizations, and initiatives. Youth development is the sense refers to the application of the principles to a planned set of practices or activity that foster developmental process in young people.
So, in the third dimension, it's about going beyond the principle to integrate them to actual real-life interventions that make them practices. Let me give you an example. There are, in this country, there are principles or policies that says we must take, every organization must employ people who are living with disability. The law is there, the principle. And then you come to the building of the schools. Ife is staircase, all through. So how does that principle translate into practice? So do you want to say, we beat Ife in 1962 or 1960, when we're not thinking around these issues of disability? But are there things that we can do? Do we need to put leave some places? Do we need to make sure that some people who need to get lectures, all the lecture rooms will be downstairs, not in humanities. So take the lecturers up, So that's what practice means. Practice means understanding the principle and looking at the reality on ground and trying to put them out in a way that truly becomes a practice that favors young people and support their development and their transitioning into productive, useful, and healthy adults. Any question? All right, so this is 3 ways to do it. So the next question, therefore, is when you talk about youth sector, don't mind it. This one is too long. Don't read it. I just want you to read the first 2 lines. Every time you talk about youth development sector, it's not like health. It's not like education. Those are sectoral. Youth development is not sectoral. It's a multi-sectoral, it's an interdisciplinary practice. And I'll be advocating for young people. I'll be taking up their case. I can be an engineer and say that I'll be thinking. So it's not something that is, so if you are here, no matter where you come from, either you are in ICT, or you are in education, or you are in economics, or you are in psychology, everyone can fit in. Once you align with the principles and you understand the need to bring to practice, you are well policy, they want to develop another one. They ask UNFPA to fund them. UNFPA said, look, if I go to fund you, they are going to recommend somebody you must work it. So you bring your person, you bring on. That's how I got to know them. Otherwise, you would never know me. All right. We work together, we enjoy ourselves, we have a good relationship. So when this project was going to start, we now went to them to say, we want you to partner with us. Of course, they welcomed me. Oh, Professor, it's good to see you again. So they said, which school is this? I said, University of Medical Sciences. Oh, that's where you are now. So why is it that it's University of Medical Sciences that is developing a project around youth? Are they not doctors, nurses? Why are they the one? So after they spoke, I then smiled. And I'm like, by the way, what am I? And like, what's the matter? I said, oh, I'm a doctor. They said, no, you can't be a doctor. You're not a doctor. You know? And I always wonder why everybody thinks I'm not a doctor. Like, are you a doctor? Medical doctor? You know? I said, yeah, I am a medical doctor. How about you be working with us? See, now they understand that I'm a medical doctor. Before, I don't even know what they thought, so I didn't. Maybe they think I'm a sociologist, and like I was telling some people. When I was in medical school, I was running a training a couple of weeks back, somewhere else. And I said people should say 3 things that people don't know about them, or they won't expect about them. So when it came to my turn, I said, one of the things people don't believe about me is that as a medical student, I was totally unserious. Half of the time, I don't come to class. What I do is organize big-time parties on campus. That's what I was doing as a young man on campus. Really? And I'm serious, because medical school was boring. It was the most boring place I have been in my life. It is thoroughly a boring place. I'm serious. For me, I found it thoroughly boring. Even today, I still find it boring. You know, it's a very boring place. So what I wanted to do was then do other things to fill my time. Organize, I was Alpha Mayor. We used to do something like that every year to play on campus and things like that. You know, that was so. And I remember that as a student, my friends don't believe I was a medical student. So even now, as an adult, nobody believes that I'm you know. But the point I'm making is, anybody, it doesn't matter who you are, you can be. Amina is leading adolescent health. Adolescent health is an integral part of youth development. So because nobody can say, Amina, you're a doctor, so why are you here? You're a public health. No. All of us have a right to be in youth development, if we choose to be. All right. I was going to say, all right. This is one of the things I'd like to let people know. That every time we think about youth, there's something in the adolescent field and youth development field. We talk about positive youth development, PYD. It's not common in literature. I talked about how you truly can. It's a view about how we see people. A lot of people see young people as trouble and problems. And those guys, before you know it now, they are drunk. They are this, they are this, they are this. You can't trust them. And people think about young people like almost like problems. You know, one of the very good dimensions that we talk about in the field It's about the positive youth development. And it tells us what do we need for young people to grow. What do young people need to fulfill their potential? What does every young person need to truly be able to step into the place of fulfilling his potentials? And there are 6 things. And sometimes I can do this whole lecture on these 6 things. But this lecture is not about that. It's about just. So what's the first one? I found that in life, young people who are competent tend to do better in life. You know that they are competent, you know that you can do it. Everybody's saying, oh, who can work on this computer? And like, yeah, I can do it. You just see that somehow life seems to support them growing up. But the point I'm making here is this: because we know these are elements that are made for youth development, when we think about young people, one of the things we must think about fundamentally is how do we build young people's competence? But intentionally focusing on what kind of competence can I help this young person build. And every young person can build competence. It's a matter of who that person is. You know, of course, not everybody will be competent as a doctor, not everybody, but you all can be competent based on your natural God-given ability. Number 2 is what? Confidence. One of the examples of confidence I always like, I have a friend who is about this tall. You know, but somebody who is never, he will tell you, if you are taller than me, you are too tall. He said, because I'm made in the image of God. Anybody that is taller is too tall. Anybody that is too short is too, you know. So you can't harass him, you can't, because he's so comfortable in his skin. He's confident about, you know why young people go into trouble, drug and other things, is because of lack of confidence. They feel, oh, they'll be left out. So they have to follow people. So when you help young people to be confident, we are building them for a very positive dimension of life. Number 3 is what? Connection. You know, we are all product of connection. That's what we are. And when I think about young people and building connection here, it's not just social connection. It's about talking about things like mentoring, about things like parenting. I'm talking about school connectedness. You know, those social networks around them. And some of you may know what they call the Buffett-Brenner framework that talks about the MISO, the MESO, the macro, the chrono, and all those things. Some people learned it in school public, but they forgot it. I'm not talking about anybody. You know? But talk about the connection becomes important, including the peer connection. Many times when we think about peer influence, we are always thinking negative. No. Peer influence can be extremely positive. When I finished secondary school, I had the best, and I'm not talking about praising myself, I'm just want to tell a story. I had the best result in my school. Then one of my friends, she wasn't bad. I'm not even sure she made one of the 10 best results. Everybody was saying, Shegun, oh, you did well, congratulations. You just keep saying, Shegun, I pity your life. He said, you are too playful. He said, you know, you can make far better results than you, but you just play your life away. You know? I was like, what's wrong with her? Maybe she's jealous. She was my best friend, you know, in school. You have the grade that's not close to mine, and you have the audacity to be. But every time I think back, I'm like, this girl got it right. If I had sat down, I'd be more serious with my life. You know, young people can support each other to become better, to become just to be more goal-driven, more resourceful. So it's not all about negative relationship. What's the next one? Character, of course. I always say that's the glue that holds everything together. If we don't begin to help young people to understand things like integrity, things about value of life and other things, if we build all other things, they will fall apart one day. So we have to help young people to understand those fundamentals if you are going to help them to become positive adults. And lastly,
Caring and compassion.
There are 2 more. Caring and compassion. You know, by biological processing, young people have fairly high level of compassion. Look, if they say there is war in Afghanistan, who will go? A young person will probably volunteer than you. Because you will say, Afghan, eh?
They have low risk perception.
They have low risk perception, but also they have a height of compassion. And a young guy is going with her mom, and somebody is being, Mom, why don't you just give her more money? Because there is, and when we teach young people to truly care and to be compassionate, we are bringing people who will bring not just positive values to people, but they bring positive value to their life. When people are depressed, one of the solutions to depression is to go out and do good. If you are depressed, just go out and do good. You'll be amazed how your spirit will, because the way the brain is wired and the hormones, the release of, somebody just smile to us and say, thank you. Believe me, there's something that happens within your system. The endocrine response to it. So when you teach young people to be compassionate, to be caring, you're also teaching them to become more mentally healthy and to be less susceptible to things like suicidal ideation. So you need to teach young people about care, about compassion, because it's extremely important to life. Don't worry, I would. Thank you. And the last thing is contribution. And contribution is particular in our society. One of the things I've learned is that the older generation, the educated people, they diminish the potential for young people to contribute. And I will explain. One day I was at the airport in Abuja. I was on the queue. And there were these two women behind me. They were talking about young people. I don't know about how they are burros. These young people are so lazy. They are so killing. They kept on talking. After a time, I couldn't take it any longer. So I talked to her, I said, Ma, can I ask you a question if you don't mind? He said, yes. I said, who trained these young people? Abi? Did someone train them? Who brought them up? So that they are all that you are saying, useless, lazy, not responsible. Who are the people? What generation brought them up to be exactly that? The truth, many of the things we accuse younger people for are products of our failure in the way we bring them up and the value of life we give them. So let me bring that back into context. When young people, when you want to do things and everybody says, no, don't worry, you are too young, go and sit down. You want to cook at home and don't worry, the cook will do that. The opportunity for young people to develop becomes minimized. So we need to make young people truly develop. You need to give the opportunity to try things, to fail. You give them a space for their voices and their ability to just contribute, to be part of the reasoning, the action, and the planning. And that's part of what helps young people to be able to go. So in positive youth development, these are the 6 things we talk about. What's number 1? Confidence. Number 2? Confidence. Number 3? Connection. Number 4? Character. Number 5? And number 6? You might see some in literature, by the way, that will list only 5. You might see some that list 7. It actually started with 5, and people began to think, but this 6 is what I normally like to talk about. Okay, so let's talk about what are the areas of youth development. This is what we see. If you look at the World Program of Action for Youth, led by the UN system, that there are 15 areas that talk about young people and the major issues that face them. But this document is old, but that's the only World Program of Action. But one of the interesting things you see here is that everything you can think about young people is probably there. In fact, when you look at our policy, youth policy, the one before the last one, there are 15 areas like this there. 15 areas. Goal, objective, goal, objective. I'm like, who will remember 15 areas? And that's why in the last policy, we decided that it doesn't make sense. Let's cut it down to 5 broad areas because it's easier for us to picture. This doesn't mean exclusivity. By the way, many of the areas are related. Look, take the example of girls and young women. They need education, they need employment, they need hunger and poverty. They don't need hunger, they don't need poverty, but they also have poverty. The point why they did this was that to say Each of these areas deserves some intentional focus within the broad frame of youth development. All right, but this is what the UN has called about the 2030 youth priorities. 5 things: engagement, personal advocacy, informed and healthy foundations, economic empowerment through decent work, human rights, peace and resilience building. These are the 5 core areas that they are looking at towards 2030, working with for young people. Okay, you want to do in the area of your research? There are several came from. I'm trying to see what the reference is now. This came from one of the youth development works. They are looking at various areas where there are research and measurement issues. So there are all kinds of things you talk about, including religion. It's still part of youth development. Many years back, one of my students, you know the student, Yinka Shubiaru was my student, was going to do a work, a master's program, about master's thesis. And I'm going to be looking at adolescent religiosity. And they almost threw it out at the department. Like, what is religiosity? We fought it. Well, they didn't fight it. We defended it. So we said, like, so they allowed it to go. They got to PG school. And they said, what is stupid? What is this stupid of religiosity? And they said, no. As they were finishing, one man came in from education, who is an expert in measures. They said, we just treated one, but it didn't take time. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He said, what was the topic? He said, adolescent and sexuality and religiosity. I'm like, what do you mean he doesn't know what he's talking about? What is religiosity? The man had to stand up and give a lecture about religiosity as something that has clear measurements in literature. And publish a paper on it, talking about the external religiosity, internal religiosity, how they are measured, how they affect youth development. So anything you see here, it sounds simple. It's an area that people have done several works, and there are areas where several works still need to be done. All right. So when you think about how people then try to capture have they tried to comprehensively capture youth development? One of the ways they've done that is by developing youth index. And like you may have heard, one of the things we're doing in this project is we have developed a youth index. I mean, you were here at the session in Lagos. So we have just finished developing Nigerian First Youth Index. But this just look at how one of the ways people have looked at it. There are so many things you can look at young people's life, from basic human nutrition, water, shelter, personality, to other things like access to knowledge. There are so many areas you can think about for young people. But let's talk about Nigeria and then close. So, like I said to you, one of the things we decided in this last policy is that we're going to focus on only 5 areas. And these are the 5 areas: social and economic well-being, health and healthy lifestyles, inclusiveness and equitable opportunities, promotive and protective environment, partnership building and effective collaboration. And each of those areas also have some areas where we can. We felt that it's easier to structure thoughts around big areas rather than have 15 areas and since they have 15 strategic objectives. Okay? All right. Even as I reflect about this, if I have to do this again, I have to do it slightly differently. Because some of these are difficult to measure. We can't find things to measure many things. Some of the things we have here. But there are still areas we can think about. All right. This is what the objectives are, 23. One of the things I like to say to you is that if you are looking for data, a comprehensive set of data around youth in Nigeria, this is the #1 document to look for. National Youth Survey 2020. It's available free of charge online with National Bureau of Statistics. The only sad thing, and I hope they will be here, they will come in to give lecture. The only sad thing is that they said they can't lay their hand on the data set, even though they are the one that did it. They said the consultant that did it has not been able to release it and they have not been able to access Till today, we are struggling on getting that data set of them. So you require using them. But you find the figures and this issue online. Okay, any question? If there's none, let's close.
The 6 years, can you talk on how to build competence in young people?
Depending, there are several ways. One of the ways to build competence in young people, you can do an intracurricular approach, you can do an extracurricular approach, you can do a co-curricular approach, depends on what you want. If you run through schools, if you run school programs, our school programs are designed with the intent of not just speaking, but giving people a way of reasoning and a way of applying themselves. We are building competence. Let me give you an example. One of the challenges, by the way, about Nigerian school system is that it doesn't teach people how to do many, many things. You know, the basic assumption of the teacher is that I have the knowledge, I need to pour it into your head. What that does for you is it stops the process of thinking. And that's why in many places, I was sharing an example a few days ago. Jadola and I were in Harvard for a program. There was no single time a teacher came up to teach us to write a word. I was there for 3 days. And it cost several hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. But what they tried to do, welcome, was to challenge you with questions. In University of Washington, where I did a program, for every class we have a case study. They buy case studies and you run through real life case studies. How do you find a solution? But for young people, that can be done. But you can also give young people opportunity to do like things like develop competence in use of computer, ICT, develop competence, in language. So there are many buckets of areas. You can say it's about exposure, it's about training, it's about mentoring, it's about ensuring that you give them support to make learning easy. So it's something we do every day, many, many ways, and something we need to do more. All right. Professor Sir, you are welcome, sir. Our professor has been in Lagos training with us there. So I want to end up and say, one of the things to think about is, when you think about youth development, you say, where is Nigeria? One of the things I tell people around public health, that public health is a very, very sweet area to work in. One of the reasons that will make it easier and sweet is that we always think about frameworks. Think about frameworks. Once you understand a framework, you can deal with any issue. And one of the most important frameworks to get to know is the Bronfenbrenner framework. This was Bronfenbrenner, a child psychologist that talk about ecological system theory. And you can ask several questions using a framework like this. If you are looking at different things, look at this young person. The closest system to him, which is called the microsystem, are things around the family, the religious, the peer group, the classroom. But there are also connections between the various, this forming what they call the microsystem, and that made them a mesosystem. In other words, what happened in a family affect what will happen, for example, within a religious setting. That they are all connected, they are not discrete, and things like that. And when you think about this, you can look at various areas of the life of young people and think about, what am I interested in? What framework can I use to help me examine it? But this is a global framework that can be useful to understand who young people are and how do we need to see their development in context. This is one quotation from the former Minister of Youth Development. And this more or less summarizes what I've said to you around our context of youth development. That the issue of advanced youth development is a multifaceted phenomenon, which requires a multi-sectoral approach. As no agency, even if the agency is called Ministry of Youth, as no agency, one agency or organ of government can adequately address youth issues and the challenges that we face as a country. All right. Can we read this together? Let's go.
Young people are not problems to be solved. They are resources to be developed.
I'm not sure you are convinced. You are reading this as if somebody like, this man is forcing us to say what we don't believe in. Can you read it as if you believe this?
Young people are not problems to be solved. They are resources to be developed.
Thank you. Please always remember that one of our greatest opportunities in life is to help to develop your people and the great potentials they bring to the fore. All right, thank you. So, question, if there's any. Otherwise, I think we need to go for lunch. What's the time? 2 o'clock. Oh, yes, sir. The man from Foye. What's your name, sir? Stephen.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It's very delightful to hear you speak. I've read your work a lot, but I've not heard you speak like this. I would like to ask if we can be privileged to have this material.
Sure. Every material in this program, we have them. Every.
All right, thank you so much.
All the materials in this program, you have them. In fact, my theory was that I won't even do one of the lectures. I'll go and do it at home tonight and record and just send to your box and just go away and sleep. You know? So you have every material. Okay.
I want to this disturbing trend about substance abuse in this age group we are talking about, and I don't know. I heard some stories and I get disturbed, and I'm like, was it like this in the past? Is it because of the social media that we all have access to that we are hearing of it more, even in campuses and all that? And I just want to ask that, what else can be done? Is it that we are not doing enough to actually,
yeah,
you know?
You're asking me a question you should answer. Make it your research focus. Now, but you know about this study, because this study is going to be secondary analysis. You may not have some data, but you can, because UNODC published a work around youth and around drugs in Nigeria, and they have a couple of data. But let's talk about youth, about that issue in a little bit of way. There are several factors that are driving this. Normally, naturally, young people are curious. If you are not curious, then there's something missing in your being a young person. I used to tell this story. I was once at a meeting in the University of Washington and talking with colleagues who we work together in adolescent health. And everybody was talking about their young youth. They were talking about their experience. Someone will say, oh, I used to smoke marijuana. Someone will say, I used to take a lot of drink. Of course. And then I was quiet. He said, Shegun, what did you do with your youth? Are you not drinking? Are you not smoking? I said, no. So he said, what did you then do with your youth? You know, a time of youth, now that's a very loaded question. I won't. Of course, I've told you about what I did with my youth, organizing big time parties. But the point here is this. To be young means to be adventurous. What stops all of us, in a way, is the environment we are in. If you are with parents that like, to ban me, like they will just give you one dirty slap. They will recondition your brain and your thinking, and your adventure will become, you know, something else. But the point I'm making is to be adventurous natural. To use drug can start as an adventure. To want to know, to want to feel, to want to experience. The danger is you don't know we experience and then becomes stuck. That's why it's always better not to stop. But that's one aspect. So if you think that the youth inquisitiveness, and then you look at other factors that surround it. If you are inquisitive and you don't have young people around you who are smoking, who are using drugs, your inquisitiveness will not take you to drug. I don't know if it makes sense. It will take you to other things, but not drug. And that's why in adolescent health, we always talk about both the risk factor and the protective factor. So the way to reason about it is to say, what are the risk factors that are increasing drug? And it is, if you go back here, you can answer that question. Look, families are breaking apart. Young people are becoming very disoriented. They don't have parents to talk to. Parents are, even when they are there, they are not there. They are there, in physical. They are not there. And when young people have questions, there are no people to go to. So they go to their friends who say, if you take drugs, you just, I'm sure, I don't know what when I was young, when we were trying to prepare for WAEC, we were trying to see what will keep us reading. They told me, one of the solutions they gave me is, put your leg inside water. I don't know if you tried it before. I did it. My father woke me in the second morning. My leg was in the water. They said we use this amphetamine. No, seriously, I didn't know what there were amphetamines. Seriously, I tried a few of them. Because the idea was, we wanted to succeed. You want to pass. You need to read for longer hours. We didn't know. But maybe if I had gone to my parents and said, Daddy, with this, if my daughter comes to me, don't let me talk about the father. Let him be resting, where he's resting. If my daughter comes to me and say, if I put my leg in water, what will happen? I will say, you know what? I will wake you up second morning. She won't bother to do it because she asked me and I have an answer. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, the physical presence, the school is one big issue. You talk about school connectedness. That every young person that has a teacher he can trust or a teacher that believes in him or her is likely to be less deranged. Sometimes we do things because we want to impress the teacher. I must not come second. Mr. Bankole won't like, So when you take a frame like this, then you understand where the gaps are by thinking in a very broad. So your question is, yes, it's not because social media is making us know alone. Of course, social media is making us know. But the truth is that the prevalence is truly increasing over time because many of the factors that are protective are being removed. Many of the risk factors are increasing. And the natural thing we do is process. But I always think that what's more important is to say, what can we do? I'll share one example with you, what we do in Unimed, which I'm not sure how many schools are doing. In this school, when you get admission, you are checked for drug. And every year, every student must be tested for drug. When you are coming in is when we test you the first time. If you are smart and you know we are going to test you, all you need to do is stay off drug for 30 days or something. Half-life. No problem of any sort. You'll be tested for drug. So that is your common sense. That's what can be your drug sense. But outside that, every student is tested every year randomly. They just come to class, they pick you. Wow. And go and be tested. And when you are tested and you are positive, we don't drive you from school. We send you to rehabilitation. We only send you away if you don't agree or your parents don't agree to go through rehabilitation. You know the interesting thing, you started last year. When you started, a number of students came and said, don't test me. I am using drug. Let me tell you, just that. Some people are like, they can come and pick me now. So it's discouraging people. We are putting in protective factors. To help young people know that we can stay off. So now what you are doing this new year is that you are going to sign a legal agreement. As you are coming to school. This is what you go through, this is what you go through. And I just give that example. We are not a big school like if maybe 35,000 students. But the point is, if you all can do small things around the circle, I can tell you many more stories. I'm leading a group called, in our church, I belong to, which church do I belong to, sir? Anyway, in the Aka church, this is my original church, we have a work called NAWADA, Nigerian Anglican War Against Drug and Addiction. And it's a national work. Now we have trained people in every diocese in this country to be able to train other people. So the men are talking about it, the women are talking about it, the youth are talking about it. And so the point for me is there are always things we can do. But there's a problem. But many times we talk about the problem and we don't talk about what can we do to solve this problem. I have not answered your question. I hope I have answered this. Yes, all right, let's close. So when you go and do something in your church. Yes, and something in your mosque. By the way, I personally believe that churches and the mosques as part of our greatest opportunities to turn young people around in this country. Almost everybody goes to church, even though all of us are the same. You know, church doesn't change us. You know, mosque doesn't change us. But it can become very mighty instrument to change people. Young people that are religious are less likely to engage in drugs. They are less likely to engage in premarital sex and many other things. You know, so it's important. All right, let's take a break.
Thank you, sir.
How many more lectures do I have? One more, right? When is that start? In 10 minutes time or 15? Or do they go for lunch or should we close for today?
I was thinking,
What's the next one?
is coming.
Who is KSA? Kicks on that day. It's not here today. Oh, PSA. PSA is the actual answer.
After the free period.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Let's take, the free period is for those who want to relax, those who want to go and pray, and that's why the free period is there, by the way. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
We'll see you in 30 minutes time, or 1 hour, whenever it is. I don't even know. What's my second lecture? I want to even open my second lecture. I want to see. This is close to water.